So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I went about creating a filter where all I have to do for the time is enter the 24-hour period, and I avoid entering the colon that's required. So that's my main frustration, is filtering just clicks, and also when I'm entering time, taking my hand off the number pad and doing shifts and colon. So what I've done is I've created something where if I enter a number here, so I've got 1157 and 1439, which represents 239, and I were to update this data here in Power Query, you can see it's filtered it, and what should be showing here is everything between these two numbers, which it is. So I'm going to talk about how I went about doing that. So how does Excel determine what time and date to show inside the Excel? So it's going to use whole numbers for the dates, and then a fraction anywhere from 0 to 1 to determine the time. So if you were to enter, let's see here, let's enter 1, and I'm going to enter 0.5 and 1.5. Okay, if we were to change this to a time, if you come up here to this drop down, you're going to see all you're going to have is date and time. And so clicking on either of these is not really going to help you, because it's not going to show you what it's doing behind the scenes. But if you come down here to more number formats, come down here to custom, and then what you're going to see is you're going to see all this. If you were to click on right here, month, day, year, hour, minute, and then come up here to the type, put AM, PM, we can see what's going on here. So 1 is the very start of 1/1/1900 at midnight. That's the beginning. And then this is before that first date, so this is just a time, but it's defaulting to 10 and at 12 p.m. So 12 a.m. is represented by 0 as a fraction, and then it's going to go from 12 a.m. to all the way through to 11:59 p.m. And so if I wanted to see what if I wanted to return today's date and time, what we would do, just to drive this home, is I'm going to type in today's date and today's time, just 12:02. Keep in mind that if it was 12:02 a.m., it would be just 2, but because it's p.m., it's going to be at 12:02. I'm going to do the same here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to get the applicable number for it. So this whole number here that represents today's date is 44507, and then the decimal place that's going to represent today's time is 0.50138888. And so if we were to put these together, let's do it over here. Returns 11/7/2021 at 12:02 p.m. So knowing that, we know that if we were to enter a number into this cell, it would automatically read it as a certain date, and it's going to, since there's no decimal place, it's going to be 12 a.m. So if we want to convert this to time, we're going to have to create a formula that converts this from 1300 to whatever decimal place represents 1 o'clock p.m. So if we were to want to return 12:30 a.m. on the 24-hour clock, this would be 12:30. And so if we were to figure out, all right, well, what is the decimal that represents this, we could come here, change it to this, and we can see that's 0.0208333. So then in this box, we would want to put, we might be tempted to put 12:30. You know, we're really just going to have to mentally um, be aware that we have to use the 24-hour clock here, because there's just no way to structure anything to determine just by entering 12:30. It's not going to know whether we want AM or PM. So we got to use the 24-hour clock. But if I was to enter, so I'd enter 30 here, and then we'd have to do something to it to get it to 0.020833. And so 24 hours in a day times 60 minutes in an hour. So if we're going to divide that by 1,440, and that gives us the same number, which is nice and simple. Unfortunately, it's not just that simple, because what do we have at the end of the hour, right? We have 58 and 59, and then instead of going 60, 61, it jumps to 100. So we're going to have to create something where we're returning 60 when we enter 100. And so to think through this, every time it comes up to a new hundredths, so when it changes from 59 to 100 and 159 to 200, every time it adds another hundredth to the hundredth number place there, we want it to subtract 40. So to do this, we're going to do round down. Let me do it up here. Every time it hits a 100th, that's what we need to return as a whole number. So when it's in the 100 to 159 range, we want it to return 1. When it's in the 200 to 259, we want it to return 2, and etc. So we're going to do this number over here that we enter divided by 100, and that's going to give us a number, and I'm going to put this right here. Let's do 159. Alright, so we can see there we've got 0, 1, and 2, but we've got this decimal place here, and that's going to throw off our calculation. So that's why we're going to add round down. Let's see. Alright, and that gets rid of the decimal place. So now we have a number that's showing us what the hundredth place is on the number. And so we want to times this by 40 to get us the number that we're going to end up subtracting from this. So we're going to take this and we're going to times it by 40. And then after this, the rest of it is pretty simple. We're just going to come here to this formula, take the number that we enter, subtract whatever this number is. You can see that returns us the number that we're looking for here. And so now to convert it to the decimal place that's needed for the time, we're going to come up here and we're going to wrap this in parentheses, and then we're going to divide it by 1,440. And just to confirm that these are all working, let's come in here and convert this to time. So we've got 12:59 a.m., 1 a.m., 1:59, 2, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So I currently have entered in here 1300 for the beginning time and 1415 for the end time. So I'm just going to worry about the end time here. So we're going to come over here and see what numbers we're going to be expecting when we go to enter this into Power Query. So the number 849 over 1,440 would give us 215. So before we divide it by 1415, 40. We're going to be looking for 849. And then the decimal that we're going to be looking for is, let's see here, 0.59375. And that's going to be the final number that we're going to want to see in there. And so let's go ahead and open it up here. So I'm going to come over to and so I've already created a query here where I'm referencing the cell on the table. I have a table there for those yellow cells, and I'm referencing the correct cell here. And so I'm going to come over here to Advanced Editor, and I'm going to open it up. And what this is saying is, if that cell is blank, then or is not blank, excuse me, then this is what we want. Otherwise, we want 1, and that's going to make it to where it shows every single time period in the table because the time is based on a 0 to 1. And so we're going to delete this here, and we're just going to take it one step at a time to make sure we get this in correctly. So let's start out with the cell we're referencing, which is record.field, which is correct. We're referencing the row 2 on column 2. And we're going to be dividing that number by 100, and then we're using the round down function. So we're going to put divided by 100, and over here we're going to do number.roundDown. This works just like the one does the function in Excel. So we've got this in here, and then we're going to come out here and do 0. Finish that off. Then we're going to times it by 40. Let's actually let's go ahead and click done so we can see what number it is. 14. Times 40. Wrap that in parentheses. Then we're going to be subtracting that number first. So we're going to copy this and paste it right after this parentheses, and then we're going to do minus. It gives us 855, so something's off here. Let's go back in here. Okay, so 855 is the number that we're going to be looking for. This is sort of where it gets tricky. So I put 14.15 here. 15 is a quarter of 60 though, so we're going to put 0.25. And so we have 855 in here, and so now we're just going to divide it by 1440, and we're going to click done. That's going to give us 0.59375. And so the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here to our main data that we're looking to filter, and we're going to put a filter into the code. And so calling this time filter equals table.select rows. We're going to reference the prior step here, and then put comma each. And this is where we're going to enter the things we want to filter it by. So we want the time to be greater than the beginning time, and we want time to be less than or equal to the end time. Come up here, put a comma, change this one. Okay, so we have this error here. It says we cannot apply operator less than to types number and time. So what this is saying is that it sees when it goes to do this greater than or less than, we're taking the time and comparing it to a decimal, and so Power Query doesn't use the decimal system. It's inside Excel, not Power Query, so it doesn't make that connection of 0.59 equals a certain time. So it doesn't know what's going on, and so it's just throwing us an error. And so what we have to do is we have to convert the decimal to a time. So over here we're going to use the time.from function, and we're just going to simply put time.from and then the number in there. And so I'm going to come up here to the query where we've got this in, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to start out by putting a comma. And I'll also say I don't know where there's a button on here to convert it to time. I mean, I don't ever see one on here, so this is something we're just going to have to do inside the advanced editor. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to put comma, and put convert, and it's going to be time.from. Click done. And it gives us 2:15. And so now this should work. Okay, and so we're looking for it to filter everything that has a time between 1 o'clock p.m. and 2:15. And it looks like it's done that because the data I have runs every hour at 1:30 or at 34, the 34-minute mark. So we're only going to be getting 1:34, and so it looks like it's working good. I'm going to close out of it though and do some tests on it and see how it works. And so it's updated there, and so let's do let's delete these and re-update it. All right, let's see what's going on. So it doesn't like the one I put here. So if we come over here to the documentation, we can see that a time equivalent to the number of fractional days expressed by value. If the value is equal to 1, an error is returned. So I'm thinking that if we put 0.99999, we'll get what we're looking for. So let's give it a try. So what we have here is in the begin time here we say if there's a number in that cell, then we want it to do the calculation and return the number. If it's blank, we don't want it to filter it at all. So we're going to say here we're saying 0, and it's returning 12 a.m. just fine. And then down here at the end time, which is where we had problems, it's returning 23:59:59 now, 0.913, and so that works fine. It doesn't say PM, but I'm assuming it is PM. So let's keep this, come back over here. I'm going to refresh. It looks like everything is in there. Scroll through here. Yep, we got 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So now let's give it one more try here, and we're going to say, let's see, 11 o'clock. So that's going to be 1100, and then everything from there to 2:55. So it's going to be 14:55. And so what we should see is 11:34, 33, and then the 11 o'clock, the 12 o'clock, the 1 o'clock, and the 2 o'clock hour. So you see the 11, the 12, the 1. Don't see a 2 o'clock there. So I'm not seeing 2 o'clock, so let me make sure. All right, so I'll come back in here and I see 2:15, which is not what we're looking for. So I'll come back into the code here. You see that I've left this as 14:15, which is not what it should be. It should be this one up here, record.field, which references the input. So we're going to paste that in there, click done, and then that should bring us up to 2:55. So I'm going to come out here, update, and we should see the 2:55 in there. There it is. And so, yeah, it seems to be working great now, and I'm going to leave it here. Okay, so to finish off, just going to show a couple of videos here that talk about some of the things that I had going on in this video that maybe you might want to check out if you're looking to replicate this. So to talk about how to filter the table where we're using these cells to filter them, you're going to want to come here to this one right here, and to get more instruction on how to use the record.field inside of Power Query to to create those variables that we used, you can come to this one right here and talk about how to do that. One final note on how you can avoid potentially entering something like 10:30 when you actually want to do 10:30 p.m., which would be 22:30. So if we have a certain time range that you want, so in this situation, I know that I'm only ever going to be entering a time between 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m., which would be 1600. So in order to avoid me entering 2 o'clock, because I know I'm never going to need to enter 200 in here, what I've done is I've gone up here to data validation, and you can validate the cells to where it's between the times. So when I go to, say I want to enter 4 o'clock down here, and I go to enter, and I forget, I enter 4 o'clock, it's going to tell me it doesn't match it. You have to enter 1600.